Good evening and happy Halloween. This is Bravo, back with you again. This video will be a little bit different from the others, as this is not a paranormal or cryptid channel, but it is a spiritual channel, and this story does have to do with spirits. And I assure you, this is not a made-up creepypasta. This is a 100% true story that happened to me. And you can choose to believe it or not believe it, but I'm just here to share. So as you listen to my story, and this is an account of a few supernatural spiritual experiences that happened to me. This is not a supernatural channel. You can see my other videos are mostly either rapping, poetry, or motivational and spiritual talks, but this will be a little bit different. So this story starts off a few years ago. I was walking with my friend. So I grew up right by the Bosque, the river forest in Corrales, New Mexico. This is a very old forest that native people have lived in for possibly millennia, for thousands of years. And so it has a very powerful energy. And so we were walking there, and I've grown up in this forest around it, and it's very dear to my heart. And I've been there at nighttime and never experienced really anything, just beautiful sky, beautiful trees, and beautiful river. Nothing really scary that I can think of. There was one time where I saw a dark kind of figure in the tree. It could have been a porcupine or small bear, but really besides that, really nothing. And so my friend and I were walking, and we saw this area that had a line of sticks, and it was something new. It was getting a bit dark and cloudy, and one thing of note, I was talking to him about the legend of Robert Johnson and the Hellhounds that would follow him. He was known for selling his soul to the devil for godly guitar playing skills, and was cursed with the Hellhound following him. So I just was telling my friend about this and kind of identifying with that story metaphorically. So my friend got kind of a bad vibe when he saw these sticks. It was getting dark and stormy, and so we turned around. As kind of a warning, I was okay with it, but he had a bad feeling. It was time to get home anyway. So flash forward to later on that evening, that night, about 12 o'clock, I decided that I was going to go out there into the forest where the sticks were on my own. And one thing I just remembered that happened months and months before this, I was out with a couple other friends in that area. There was this creepy guy out there in the middle of the forest, had this huge dog with him, just had a really kind of a bad vibe to him. He was real silent. I tried talking to him, asking if there was coyotes out there. He was like, "Oh yeah, there's coyotes out here." And he had just this huge silent dog with kind of ears that looked like horns. Yeah, and so again, just being the type of person who is skeptical and is challenged by these type of warnings, I thought, well, we got that strange vibe out there. You know what? I think I'll go out there completely alone tonight. And so I didn't make it out there, and this is where the story happened. I walked out, and this is just on the road, not even out to the forest, this dirt road where I grew up. I'm living at my mom's, and there was not much light out. It was a super, super dark night. And so the trees were so dark in this one area, it was literally just about 40-50 steps out into the road. I looked ahead and I saw what I thought was a coyote or a dog in the middle of the road. And it was in this area that was very shadowed, and there was trash cans that were also casting a shadow within a shadow. And so I saw something moving. I'm like, oh, it's probably a bunny or a coyote. And so I looked to my left, and there was a bunny just running along. And so as I got closer to this very dark area, I noticed this thing was a lot bigger than a bunny or coyote. It was about the size of a medium-sized bear. And I'll always remember the way it moved. And looking back on this memory, so it was on the left side, and it moved to step right in front of me. And again, being a skeptic, I thought this was just going to be a coyote or a dog. The bears wouldn't come down into this area where there's houses. It's not super rural. There's roads. And just the way that it moved, looking back on the memory, now I remember that it didn't make step noises as it moved. And so I kept walking closer, thinking this was some sort of animal. It would run from me, my just blind, skeptical confidence. And so this thing, whatever it was, and now I call it a hellhound, as I was talking about earlier that day, it stepped right in front of me. And all I could see was its mouth open up, and there was just bright white teeth in the middle of this darkness, the shadow within the shadow. And it just made this tiny little noise, but pretty terrifying at the same time. Just a calm growl like that. And I freaked out. I took out my phone as I was turning around to run. And I shined a light, and I didn't see anything, but I was running at the same time, and I literally just ran back into the yard, into the gate, the fenced yard. And so I climbed up into the tree house to try to see if there's anything there. I couldn't see it. And being skeptical and brave, I ran to my car. I ran back out there to the road. I ran to the car, flipped the car around to shine the lights. There was nothing there. And so now looking back, it was obviously not something that was physical. It was not something that was physically present. But I saw it with my physical eyes. I didn't see it as some third eye vision. Wasn't on any sort of hallucinogenic drugs or anything like that. I saw it with my normal eyes. This is obviously not something I normally see. And so what happened is I literally ended up calling the police, asking if there was any sort of bear sightings. Yeah, and there wasn't. And so, yeah, just thinking back, I'll never forget that moment standing face to face with that hellhound. It had no eyes. It was, I would say, about little more than 5.5 feet tall, crouched over, maybe about 5 feet tall, and really wide, like about 6 feet wide, as it stepped in front of me, and this tiny little, almost like a grin of teeth, like when the Cheshire cat smiles, just appearing right there in that darkness, that bright white teeth in this shadow, within a shadow, within the shadow of the trees. So it was like triple darkness, as they call. And so it just growled at me, this little warning. And so, yeah, it was really a scary experience, but exciting and confusing at the same time. And this was at a time in my life where I was going through a lot of spiritual trials, a lot of changes. As I talk about in my channel, these rearranging moments, these new feelings, then I believe it was a warning in certain ways and also a guide. I don't necessarily believe it was evil at all. And I do think it was protecting me in certain ways. I don't think it meant me any harm. It was there to bring me out of my skepticism that I was someone who didn't believe in the spiritual dimension and the spiritual world. I was very much agnostic and atheist before that, and so I always desired to have some sort of spiritual experience, and it happened to me. And so there's a lot more to this story that happened later on, but this is really one of the most intense parts, and it did continue on. I did end up going back into the forest, and I'll have to leave that for another video because there is a lot of details here. But yes, I just wanted to share with you for Halloween. This is my eyewitness account of seeing a spirit, which I call a hellhound or a shadow wolf, standing right in front of me, huge, not making noise as it stepped, growling at me right in the face, and me thinking I was this confident human being. Animals can mess with me. All it took was this spirit to show me how really scared and frightened I was, and essentially made me crumble into fear, right into fear. And so this was a time when I was dealing with a lot of fear, a lot of changes, and a lot of challenges. So thank you for listening. Stay tuned for the rest of the story. This will probably be 3 or 4 parts, as there was more experiences going back into the forest. Thank you for listening. Have a happy and safe Halloween. So thank you for watching. Make sure to like and comment if you've had any similar experiences. I would like to know. I will be putting a link up here to the next part in this story. Thank you.